I have no idea what's been going on with the UK and their government, but I'm gonna tell you what, they're making some big changes. They've kind of been moving further to the right in comparison to what they've been doing before. And I'm gonna tell you what, it's interesting to see how this turns out. Welcome back, YouTube. It's your host, Bruce GNT, and we're here to talk about the UK government is cutting off like the taxi service that they have set up with their UK Home Office, right? Where essentially they had it so that asylum seekers could get taxi rides for medical purposes, right? And the UK Home Office would pay the taxi drivers and everything like that. But seemingly it's been costing the government quite a bit, and they're saying we got to dead that. We can't have it anymore. So let's jump right in.
The UK, the government is banning the use of taxis to transfer asylum seekers to medical appointments in most circumstances. It comes after an investigation by the BBC found some migrants were travelling long distances in taxis, costing hundreds of pounds per journey. Our political correspondent Nick Eardley has more.
They've got hospital appointments like that, they normally get taxis booked for them.
We had one, we actually showed her how to get to the GP surgery. And then she kept insisting, taxi, 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 taxi.
That's a security guard talking to Radio 4 earlier this year. The File on 4 investigation found asylum seekers were routinely taken via taxi to medical appointments. Sometimes the journeys were long, sometimes they cost hundreds of pounds. The Home Office launched a review in response to the BBC's story. And now the government has announced a ban. From February, the use of taxis for medical journeys is to be stopped. There will be limited exemptions for disabled people and pregnancy-related needs. Ministers want alternatives like public transport to be used instead. Taxis are also regularly used to transport people between asylum accommodation. A review into that is ongoing, but ministers want to extend the principle that taxis are only used in exceptional circumstances. The cost of asylum transport has also been revealed to be an average of £15.8 million a year. Ministers hope that stopping their routine use will help slash that cost. The Home Secretary's already announced major changes to the asylum system, making it harder for people to stay in the UK permanently. Shabana Mahmood's also pledged to end the use of asylum hotels by the next election. But figures this week revealed more people were in hotels than had been the case earlier this year.
Mahmood, I can't pronounce the first name. Yeah, she's making some changes. I don't know what's going on, but she came in, she said, hey, look, we're going to do this. We're going to slash this. We're going to get rid of this, because I'm pleasantly surprised, because I would have never thought someone would have came in and said, no, we got to make changes now. I would have thought it would have been like a slow process, but no. She's making these changes fast. I covered a video where they were basically talking about they're making changes to the whole asylum status and how they're trying to make it to like a 20-year thing, I believe. You should check that video out. £15.8 million, and that's like $19 million in US. Yeah. I didn't do that math in my head. I'm not a genius. I looked it up.
Mahmood said she would continue to root out waste and ensure the use of taxis was only authorised in the most exceptional circumstances. Nick Eardley, BBC News, Westminster.
The use of taxis was one of the significant issues highlighted in an investigative feature on the BBC's File on 4. The reporter Sue Mitchell spoke to the Today programme this morning.
We heard how they were used to transport people long distances when they moved between hotels in different parts of the country. And if they had NHS appointments, they might be transported back to where they'd been staying. In one example, a 250-mile round trip for a hospital appointment. The taxi driver said the cost to the Home Office would be around £600 for that trip.
And following
our investigation, the Home Secretary announced an urgent review into the use of taxis by asylum seekers. The conclusion of that isn't published yet, but the Home Office has now revealed that the cost of all transport for asylum seekers is around £15.8 million per year. From February, taxis won't be used for medical appointments unless there's a particular need, like pregnancy or disability, say.
So around £15.8 million per year. That's the level it's been put at. And those taxi costs, as well as journeys that caught people's eye, especially the ones being made with no passengers.
I know, that was so surprising. And I've kept looking into that. So after our File on 4 investigation aired, I was contacted by taxi drivers who'd done lots of journeys to and from migrant hotels. One of those drivers, Steve, was telling me that he'd sometimes travel long distances to transfer asylum seekers between hotels or detention centres, and they wouldn't get in the car, but their journeys were still charged to the Home Office.
I was averaging about 200.
That's crazy. So in other words, your government, UK, was getting charged and no one was even in the taxi. That's y'all money. Just to let y'all know, it's y'all money.
50 to 275 miles a day. More than once I went from Gatwick to Southampton and I'd be sitting there and they'd come back and say, oh look, don't worry, they don't want to go. And they basically refused to move. It just logistically wasn't thought out very well, and I think it was left open to abuse.
It seems there was no effective monitoring by the Home Office of the journeys and the costs. There were 3 different companies with 10-year contracts to provide accommodation for asylum seekers across the UK, and they outsource things like food and transport to other firms. Steve was saying that he thinks this makes it easier for them to inflate the mileage. He says drivers could be sent over long distances, say they'd take passengers somewhere that was maybe even close to the hotel, and a second driver would then be dispatched to bring them back from that same appointment. He said a round trip he made cost nearly, it was 100 miles, and he thinks it costs, well over £100, and that was just to take an asylum seeker to see a dentist.
And it was only about 1.5 miles from his hotel, and after 20 minutes, I got a phone call from the control centre.
Because you were going to wait, the plan was you were going to wait.
I was going to wait to take him back to the hotel.
Yeah.
And they said to me, no, we need you back at Gatwick. So they sent me from Gatwick to Reading for a 1.5-mile journey, sent me back to Gatwick, and then sent this guy from Heathrow to Reading to pick him up.
And you think that was done to basically maximise the number of drivers making these long journeys?
I definitely do. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous.
It's worth saying Steve's one of several drivers with concerns about journey charging. He thinks about half of his daily mileage was made without a passenger.
I'm just taking that in. What else is the Home Office saying?
It says it's still reviewing the wider use of taxis for non-medical appointments. There's something it's not saying too, which is the cost of transport in the past year. The figure it's given, £15.8 million, is an average over recent years. Whenever I've asked how much it's spent in the last year, the Home Office has declined to answer. And we learned this week that the number of people in migrant hotels has gone up from 32,000 in June to 36,000 in September. So it's possible that the transport bill has gone up too.
Look at that. You see, I have no issue with, people coming over and everything like that, or people seeking asylum. But you see how it becomes an issue to where the residents foot the bill for things that they're not even able to take part in. Do you see that? There was a case in Chicago, and I did a video on it talking about how, hey, look, this company that owned this building would get this set amount if it was at capacity, or if it didn't reach a certain capacity. And once it passed that capacity, they would get an extra $400,000. $400,000. They were making buco money. Buco money. And these are things that people need to be informed about. If the UK people say, hey, look, we don't mind doing this, or foot in the bill and whatnot, okay, cool, sure. Do whatever you want to do. But at least give them the option. Let them know what's going on first, and then make that decision. Come and tell you what, personally, I know I wouldn't like it. And I have a strong feeling that they wouldn't like it either. Because that 15.8, that's not even the past year. And she said they declined. They said, nah, we can't give you that number. Wild work. Wild work. UK, I don't know. It seemed like y'all getting on the right track. It seemed like that Home Secretary, she's doing her thing a little bit. We're gonna see. Might have some pushback, but we will see. Well, you guys already know the drill. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, comment down below, tell me your thoughts. How do you feel about them making all these changes, especially these changes so quickly? I mean, just last week I was doing a video talking about the change they want to make to like asylum seeking and then getting a residency within the UK, and now they're doing all this, and it seems like there's gonna be more to come because it's all gas, no brakes over here. That's what it seems like. So let me know down in the comments below. But that's it for now. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.